Doesn't matter if you're a Netflix lover or an HBO lover, you're going to be having a three-way with both of them. On this episode of JJ Meets World, we are going to talk about Netflix's acquisition of Warner Brothers, and we're going to get into the weeds, but take you down a nostalgic timeline as well. Enjoy this episode of JJ Meets World. Stop touching me, Tucker. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. JJ Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. JJ has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirls as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
Tucker, some big news came out of Hollywood this last week, which is Netflix has acquired Warner Brothers in a deal valued at $72 billion. Now, they've got to go through some government stuff. They've got to go through shareholders.
They have to bribe Trump, basically.
Yeah, it's a done deal, right? So at this point, it would take in like a really amazingly huge thing to change what's going on. Now, I've got a lot of feelings and opinions as someone who, I'm not a Hollywood insider by any means, but I consider myself kind of savvy when it comes to this. And so I'd like to start with Netflix first.
You are an industry observer.
I read comingsoon.net every day, sometimes several times. I have a subscription to Variety. So this is what I think first. So Netflix, right? Lest we forget, 25 years ago, Netflix is like nothing. It's in its extreme infancy, and the idea is we will send you the movies that you want to rent through the mail so you don't have to leave your house. Now, in the early 2000s, people were like, we love leaving our house. We love going to video stores. That will never change.
Right.
And they weren't wrong. Blockbuster is thriving, right? Take-Two Video in the local area here, thriving.
Mm-hmm. Even a little shack called Videoland up in North Fargo.
Thriving.
They're still.
The biggest footprint at Best Buy is their DVD section where people are buying physical media. Yeah. And so people are like, Netflix, you're a joke. Now, the one thing that was nice about Netflix is you could get hard to find stuff. So if your local Blockbuster had 500 copies of Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, but didn't have Le Guard de Mon Père,
right?
That's how you could get some of these things. And I believe my first subscription to Netflix was like $3.99 a month.
Yeah, and this was where people suddenly had the access to become deeper movie buffs if they wanted to.
Yes, and that's who they approached, right? It was movie buffs. Now, a couple of years go by, and Netflix doesn't really grow to be huge, but people realize, hey, listen, there's something to this model that they've got. And all of a sudden, Redbox pops up. And Redbox makes a deal with McDonald's, and they're going to put a kiosk in every McDonald's in the country that you can rent a DVD from and return it to any other Redbox. And you've got it, and you just pay the number of days, and if you don't return it after 30 days, don't bother. You get to keep that disc. You've paid for it, and we're going to charge you adequately for it. At the same time, places start trying to figure out if there's a mail-in model for them. I remember us trying to crack the nut for Take-Two Video on you can take it and rent it, but the problem is that when you return it, if it comes in the mail on this day, it's technically late, but you put it in the mail that day, and so we were having to like manually erase late fees. It was, and then also like the damage to discs.
Right.
Like, you pop it in a little, and the cost of mailers, right? The mailer was a cost.
And this was still for the most part, HD.
Yes.
Right. This is SD DVD.
Yep.
Right. These are DVDs.
Yep. Right. Which is still a huge leap up from VHS.
Sure.
And I remember thinking like, is there really that big of a difference? And then I watched a VHS like years into DVD and go, oh my God, watching The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. on my DVD versus on my VHS, holy smokes.
It's rare that I ever feel seen by an internet meme.
Yeah.
But the one that has made the rounds a lot of, the guy who he's walking with his girlfriend, but he's looking over his shoulder
Yep.
at another attractive woman and his girlfriend's upset at him. And it's that for, previously the jilted girlfriend is VHS and he's looking at DVD, then it's DVD, he's looking at Blu-ray, then it's Blu-ray, he's looking at 4K, then it's 4K and he's looking at VHS.
Yep. Yep. With those nostalgia eyes. So Netflix then decides what they're going to do is stream. They are going to offer an application that at the time, smart TVs were not a thing. You had to buy something separate that you'd plug into your television, and it was a pain in the butt. And they made deals with things like PlayStation, right, to host the app on there so that people could stream video off of their website. And, YouTube is starting to make its way in. It's not quite what it is today, but there's all these companies and they're like, listen, the future is being on the web, right? And so like Funny or Die launches. E-Bomb's world is like, we're all about Flash. So Netflix, again, is ahead of the game. But at the same time, people are like, this doesn't matter. So Netflix makes a deal that essentially is the same deal that TBS makes. We're not going to create anything original ourselves, but we are going to take stuff that other people are making and have it there. So we are going to buy the reruns of Big Bang Theory, or we're going to play the reruns of Shawshank Redemption.
That was where I watched through all of Law & Order SVU.
Bingo, right? Because NBC has a huge library of that stuff, but they don't want to be playing it all the time, right? And so Netflix says, well, hey, we'll offer you, 25 cents a play if we can have this stuff. I don't know what the actual deal is, but they're renting content from a studio. And these places are like, that's great. Revenue we never thought we were going to get. This is perfect. Go for it. Why not? Why would we say no? And Netflix slowly but surely becomes the streaming giant that it is today because it brokered all these deals. They had The Office on there. They had Parks and Recreation. They had some of the hottest TV shows of all time, and we find out that people are less and less watching them as they air on actual like terrestrial signal television, and they're waiting for them to drop on Netflix because Netflix invents the binge. Like it wasn't unheard of because people would buy DVDs
Right.
of like Friends and Lost.
That's how I did Sopranos up until because I wanted to get prepped before season 6.
There you go. And you would watch, right? You'd watch through those things. But the binge really happens when streaming takes hold because now you're not switching out discs. You're going from one to the next, and you are watching them over and over and over again. We are at a time right now, I watched this study where people are watching television episodes more than they ever have before. Like they were talking about how Seinfeld has become so popular that it's not unheard of to have someone who say, yeah, I've seen that episode 40 times.
Yeah, I have a coworker who her background music or noise is she needs to hear people talking. So she always has Netflix playing on her phone off to the side.
Yeah, bingo.
Like, all day long.
Yep.
If she gets her stuff done, she's not like watching and not doing anything. That's to her, that is her form of music playing in the background, which, I do like streaming electronic stuff or whatever. We all have that version. But so many people now have media, like the streaming media, just playing as a comfort because they had it when they were little kids. She's got to be, I don't know how old she is. I'm guessing 24, right? So she was raised at a time where, at least when she was younger, there was more access to media.
Yeah.
As she was there as streaming was coming online. So it's now part of her vocabulary. That would totally distract me all the time.
Me too. It's for the same reason why, like my dad listen to the radio in the background, right? Because that was the nice thing is like it didn't matter. Every 25 minutes he got the news, he got the weather, and he got the cattle futures, right? It was just something that played in the background for him. And so I think the radio in the 21st century becomes streaming services.
And so at this point now, or at least back when they start streaming They're really the only game in town doing any kind of streaming before anything else.
Yes.
Right?
Even if there are other options, they are so infantile, and the amount of stuff that they have is so minimal that it doesn't matter, because Netflix becomes a catch-all. It's got stuff from Universal. It's got stuff from Sony. It's got stuff from NBC. It's got stuff from Warner Brothers.
So at this point in time, this is like 2014, 2012.
I think,
2010.
2012. Yeah, between 2010 and 2012.
Right. So at this point in time, there are two companies that today do now, especially with this merger, like they are the two. And they were both positioned at that point, and they both benefited from being early adopters. And I think Netflix looked at YouTube and said, look at the amount of data that they are getting from having the streaming service. They are getting what stuff is retaining. They're getting granular retention data that requires that they're just being given, right? And it's perfect data. They actually know to a second how many parts of a show are being watched, where people are skipping to, are people putting certain things on repeat, right? So that they can start making decisions based off of those level of analytics. Netflix starts developing shows based off of their analytics. That's where we get House of Cards, which is a recreation of another show, but that all came together with, we see that Kevin Spacey stuff performs really well here, and David Fincher stuff performs really well, and blah, blah, blah. So they lead the way in basically the thing that is their true business, right? Which their business was streaming, but now their business really is data acquisition, because they can monetize that data acquisition in their streaming and in all sorts of other ways.
They also do something that at the time is unheard of, which is they started this as a subscription fee. So
Excellent point.
Yeah, this was not something anyone was doing. You paid a la carte. Even Apple, who at that time was like, listen, we're the juggernaut. You can buy anything you want and have it downloaded on Apple, iTunes and, Apple Movies. And that's great, but they faltered, right? Because they realized that people don't want to buy a la carte. They want... they want to walk. To me, it's like this. They ran a hotel where you had to pay for everything in the mini bar, right?
Yes.
And so your average nightly cost, because you want to go in the mini bar, is $105. But Netflix is getting $180 out of you because it says you can have anything you want in this mini bar. And they know you really are only going to have one drink anyway, but you get the option to have many drinks.
They have no hard costs, effectively, besides server space.
Yep.
So I shouldn't say they have no hard costs, but their hard costs are limited compared to pressing discs and doing all sorts of other stuff like that. But they are also Netflix is probably has the largest responsibility for turning digital media from a product into a service.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So video games, all these other things now, the subscription model, it being a service instead of a product that they're selling you is now the way that everything is going. Adobe Creative Cloud, all these other systems, because
Netflix kicked open that door.
Yeah.
Like, certainly there were other things that had kind of like started to dip its toe into it, but Netflix was the first time that you had a hard monthly cost that you never thought about. I have been a Netflix streaming subscriber since day one, and I have not stopped. I have paid it in, I usually buy like a year in advance because you get a little bit of a discount on it. But I know I'm going to get it every single year. And here are industries that followed with that, right? Amazon gets into the subscription game where they're like, listen, not only are we going to have you have Amazon Prime, which is a subscription, but we want you to purchase in subscriptions. We want you to buy diapers and we'll auto ship these diapers to you, right? So like they change the way people think about funding that. The adult entertainment industry goes from this world of like, hey, we want you to, be a member of this website, and like, no, we just want you pay a subscription fee and you can get to go. I mean, heck, you look at all the things that have taken on subscriptions over the years. I have a subscription to my heating and cooling company that like runs my thermostat.
So it's funny that you say that, because I'm at a point right now where I am in the middle of purchasing a house. And ever since I started that process, I've just, by necessity, become more hyper-focused on my finances. And I ended up last week going, I'm done with subscription services almost entirely. I don't have Amazon Prime anymore. I don't have any other subscriptions. The only one that I currently have is YouTube Premium. But really what that's doing is that's not giving me access to their content. I already have access to it. It's just getting rid of the ads that I hate seeing. So it's making the content higher quality. And I'm like, I'll pay for that if that's the thing. But the
What about your Adobe? Is that through work?
That's through work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't have to take on. That would be. I don't know. Actually, at this point in time, there are so many tools now available that if I didn't have the subscription through work, I'd probably just switch to other things.
Let me tell you something about subscriptions that I think is just brilliantly shady. I don't want to learn another system. I'm really good at using Adobe Audition. Like, I know that product inside and out. And so when they're like, hey, we decided to go to a subscription model, I was like, damn it. Okay, here's my money.
Yeah.
Fine.
Hey, we changed it and it's better now.
Is it?
No.
Is it? Right? Like, is it? So, okay.
Now powered by AI.
So we're to this point now where Netflix takes, it's not just a bite of the apple. They own the entire tree at this point, and they're good to go. And slowly but surely, all these other companies start going like, oh God. And what's funny is there's an era where places like NBC, and RKO were like, we're not going to get into the television game. Television is fleeting. Radio is where it's at. There's a radio in every house in the country. Why would we want to put all this cost into being on television where there's only one television per block right now? Like, that's ridiculous. Radio is king. And we saw the same thing with streaming services, because for a long time when Netflix streaming started, I thought, well, why doesn't Disney start a streaming service? They've got almost 100 years worth of content that people want, and they're just giving it to Netflix for pennies so Netflix can do it. But at the time, Disney doesn't see the future, right? Netflix saw the future, and whoever the CEO of Netflix was at the time, which is probably like some dude who started out in someone's basement at some point, right, was a genius. Like, that person really figured it out. So then we see the trickle in of other people launching their own streaming services. And most of them were places that had a big catalog already, hurting groups like Apple, who didn't have a back catalog. So Paramount Plus launches, right? Because they're like, we have all the content from MTV. We have all the content from Nickelodeon. We have all the content from Paramount Pictures and all this kind of stuff. And they're like, that'll be good enough on its own. And then you get HBO, right? HBO launches HBO Go, which becomes HBO Max, which then becomes Max, and now it's back to HBO Max.
Which might just become Netflix now.
Well, which is going. Well, I'll read an email I got from Netflix today here in a moment. Like, they sent me an email already about it. So
They knew we were gonna make this episode.
So
trying to get ahead of it.
Yeah, they're so far ahead. They're like, we got to get on JJ Meets World, guys. This is gonna be the make or break. He's going to talk to the shareholders.
Look at their Spotify numbers. They have tens of listeners.
The problem at this point then is these places take back their content, right? They're no longer going to rent that content out to Netflix. So Netflix, who used to be the home to Sopranos, who used to be the home to Jurassic Park, and all these places for years and years and years, all of a sudden those contracts start ending, or the cost goes through the roof. And so you can't just go there and expect to see Back to the Future anytime you want. You have to maybe wait, and it's only on there from July until August, and then it's gone for a set amount of time. And so Netflix gets into the content creation game. I used to have this joke where I was like, thanks for calling Netflix, you're green lit, how can I help you? Because it didn't, like, there's at one point where they were spending $1 billion annually to create new content, and they literally were throwing a pot of spaghetti at the wall.
And I want to say that actually even ballooned up to $4 billion.
It did. Oh, $1 billion was like, we're doing this, and then they just added more and more and more. Now, one of the things I thought was really smart is they were like, let's go after stuff that people already like, right? So people watch a lot of Arrested Development on here. Let's revive Arrested Development for us. That makes sense. House of Cards is a huge show on the BBC. What if we made an American version of it, right? And they start getting these people in, and creators start talking to each other. And do you remember these articles that came out that were like directors are running to Netflix because they don't interfere. They're just like, we need this by November 3rd. You do whatever you want, but we need it by November 3rd.
Yeah, and they had large. They could tell a bigger story over a longer period of time and stuff like that.
You were not like, even when they were making their television shows, you weren't held down to an archaic 22 minutes. You could have one episode that's 41 minutes. You could have one that's 32 minutes.
And at that point in time, the only real game in town for that kind of content was HBO.
Bingo.
I mean, there was, I shouldn't say only, Showtime, you could get episodic, high budget, movie level produced dramas on a number, but HBO was their domain, right?
Yes.
It's not TV, it's HBO.
Yep.
That meant it was something, it had a different level of gravitas to it.
They call it prestige
TV, right? And we can all thank David Chase and The Sopranos for that. But anyways.
I would also say there's some other HBO shows that were launched before. Like also, Oz was a show that
we can go
heralded in.
Absolutely. Yep. I'm not denigrating anything.
History of HBO coming up soon.
The Sopranos but it was The Sopranos.
So, there's this world where they all of a sudden start making their own stuff and they get some winners. But if you look back at all the stuff that's like a Netflix original, there's a lot of stuff that sucked and did not have a life, right? But they were making it and they attracted a lot of A-name talent, and they started having wars with creators. There was a huge talk about how Steven Spielberg was like, I will never make something for Netflix. That's ridiculous. People need to see this in the theater, because theater owners start seeing the pinch, right? So a movie gets released on Netflix that is watched over like 6 million times on its opening weekend. Theater owners are going, well, what the hell? Like, we just lost that revenue because Netflix is making it for their own service. And at the time, I think that there's only ever been one. I think it was United Artists owned a chain of movie theaters, but like that's something that the government put into regulation, that you can't own movie theaters and create the product that's in the movie theaters, so that you force it. Because at one point there was talk, I think, of Disney wanting to own a chain of movie theaters, and then that would be the only place you could see a Disney picture.
Yeah, there was like a law in place.
Yeah, it's like a monopoly, right?
It's no longer in place, but
And that was a thing, right? Like, so all of a sudden Netflix is making content, their own content, that you can only find on their streaming service. Nowadays we don't think twice about that. You think of like the Ted Lassos of the world and how that you can only watch that on Apple TV, or you have to purchase it. But that was never the case, right? Like, it was never the case back in the day where you would have to be segregated from, being able to take it in a wide variety of places, including television stations are also going, hey, man, we need to be able to buy this to show this stuff. Christmas Chronicles with Kurt Russell, we want to be able to play that every holiday on, ABC Family. Well, you can't, because it's owned by Netflix. Netflix is a streaming service, and they want that subscription price. So Netflix continues to grow and grow and grow, even as other companies pull product and start to create their own streaming services. Now, this is the problem with any great idea over the years. The land grab.
Yep. And shitification happens.
Yep. So you get Paramount Plus, which is not a great streaming service. And now the streaming services aren't as robust. Rather than seeing a sea in front of you, you're seeing a lake. You can see the other side of it. It's not impossible to watch through all the content that you enjoy on a streaming service before the due date's up. Not only that, but they are also taking time to make partnerships. Now, these partnerships include things like Paramount Plus saying, God, turns out that people aren't really wanting to watch Beverly Hills Cop, and Netflix is going to make the next one. They're buying the rights to some of these things, because just because Paramount released something doesn't necessarily mean that they've got the ownership of it, which goes into even the further dregs of, like Lucasfilm owns these releases of like Indiana Jones, but Paramount distributed Indiana Jones. So like there's this weird world of like no one thought to put these into contracts back in the day, right? Just like how there was an era where I Love Lucy was in syndication making a ton of money and they were like, well, you owe us money for this. They're like, no, you don't. We owe you money for when it aired the first time. That's what you signed up for. And now we own this product that we're going to continue sharing.
Right, which resulted in a ton of strikes, and rightfully so. Because like that kind of gets to, I think, the crux of what we're getting to eventually with corporate consolidation. Is who does this benefit and who gets fucked over?
Bingo. So Walmart teams up with Paramount Plus, and they're like, listen, Walmart's launching a subscription service. Why don't we just include Paramount Plus if you get this? Last time I bought an iPhone, they're like, here's 2 years of free Apple TV. Now, usually if they're willing to give you like a huge discount on something, it means that they don't have enough stuff to really offer. I think, to me, the shocking one is Apple TV has made some good stuff, but it is slim pickings when you get into like the nitty gritty. So unless you're rewatching Ted Lasso over and over and over again, there's not a lot. And they made a deal with Tom Hanks. They've got like 3 Tom Hanks movies that only you can watch on Apple TV. So it becomes this interesting kind of feeling of like what's going to go. At the same time, movie theaters get hit with the pandemic, right? And they're like, okay, well, we can't release these into theaters because theaters aren't open, but we want to make some money. We want to make some income. And so famously, Tom Hanks says, no, we will not release Top Gun Maverick.
Tom Cruise,
yeah. Tom Hanks also. He's the Tom.
He was an early defender of that. Mission Impossible as well.
There's a club that meets every week called the Tom Club, and it's Tom Berenger, Tom Hanks, and Tom Cruise. They don't let Tom Sizemore in because he's a dick.
But for some reason they let Aziz Ansari because he played Tom.
Yeah. So Tom Cruise famously is like, no, we will not release Top Gun Maverick until it can be seen in theaters, and that plays out in the opposite of what everyone else was, right? So they maybe aren't getting the eyeballs, but they're actually bringing people back to theaters, which is a whole other discussion, but this plays into it. So it gets announced that Netflix is buying Warner Brothers. Now, Warner Brothers has been on my poop list for a while now, starting with not releasing the Batgirl movie that was fully done. And I've made a case here before that says if they use that as a tax write-off, Batgirl now belongs to the people of the United States of America. And they should give that a DVD of that to every public library in the country. And that's how you can get people into public libraries.
100% agree.
And then I don't even know how this one works, but they do the same thing with Coyote versus Acme, which was a Looney Tunes movie about the Coyote suing the Acme Corporation for hurting him all those years.
Sounds amazing.
It is. Will Forte says it's the best thing that he's ever done. And they use that as a tax write-off, and yet Catch Up Entertainment has now purchased it, and that movie's coming out this summer. Like getting a theatrical
So it is
release.
coming out.
It is, yeah. Because a new distribution company bought it from them. But Warner Brothers already got the tax break on it. And the only reason they took this tax break was it's not because the movie's horrible. It's, there's no whispers about this. It is because they're like, listen, this movie's probably not going to make $500 million, so we'll just take the money on it, which is just dirty pool. It's awful.
Warner
it's
Brothers
stupid.
merged with Discovery Plus, and
actually, I believe Discovery.
I'm sorry.
Isn't it Discovery buys the majority shareholder
something
in
like
Warner
that,
Brothers?
right? It becomes one company, and David Zaslav becomes the CEO.
Right.
And David Zaslav is the kind of CEO who is like, give in to your anger, and the dark side will absolutely reward you. Like, that's the kind of guy he is. And so while we're talking a little bit about some of the tax shenanigans, it didn't stop there. And it's happening a lot now where movies or creative work which are behind a paywall can suddenly disappear at a moment's notice merely because the company wants to do some kind of a write-down, tax off, some kind of shenanigans to get them out of whatever they're supposed to actually be paying. And the people who get screwed over is everyone but them, the creators and the audiences who could be watching that stuff.
And it's a sickening way to think of saving a buck, right? Like, it's on the back of the people who work so hard. Like, I remember people talking about the woman who's playing Batgirl, this is going to be a breakout role for her. Be like, well, what about the guy who was going to get a SAG check You know, and he got paid to be in it. But what about the guy who like was going to get some royalties off of it?
What about
like,
Brendan Fraser? Right.
Yes,
that is a new Brendan Fraser performance that we are not allowed. There's also some more Michael Keaton Batman in there.
Yes.
And listen, I will take a terrible superhero movie over no superhero movie.
Yeah.
That's fine. You know what? It's not like those bad movies haven't come out before. You could still make money off of it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, this notion that we couldn't hurt the brand by releasing it. It's like no, the brand will be Batman will be fine. The Batman brand will be totally fine.
And we'll find out because now Netflix is in charge of it.
Well, that's exactly.
You know, like we'll find. So
what do you think the conversations are like with James Gunn and his partner?
I bet James Gunn is pissed.
The co-CEO. What's David Safran?
Yep, I bet he is very angry because it's just bouncing around. Now that being said, Warner Brothers hasn't been a very good steward. Like that's what we're talking about with like the Batgirl and like Warner Brothers hasn't been a very good steward. I would actually wager that 15 years ago, the valuation of that company was probably double what it is today.
Right.
I thought $72 billion seems like nothing, considering that if you put out another Matt Reeves Batman movie, you're going to make $1 billion off of that, right? Like, all you need is a couple of movies that are ultra successful, and you've paid off this debt.
Right.
By the way, also, including with the subscription model for Netflix, I mention this all the time. So when Netflix subscription, because you would have the disc subscription, and then you could add streaming on for like $1.99, and then it became you can have streaming, but you could also add the discs on, so it flip flops. Every time if you go on the net and you're like, hey Google, how many subscribers does Netflix have? And it like worldwide, right? It is. Does Mr. Beast have? Do you want to know how many Mr. Beast has?
I could give a shit.
Okay. Netflix has over 300 million paid subscribers globally as of early 2025. The numbers showed 301.6 million in 2024. So it's continuing to grow. So 300 million plus, which means that if they raise their price $1 per month, they just made an extra $300 million per month.
That's just cash flow.
That's just cash flow. And so in a given year, they have now given themselves an extra $3.5 billion by raising my fee and your fee only by $1. So kind of put that in perspective, right? And they, like I said, they're the juggernaut. They're the one that has lasted the longest out of anybody so far. Now, I've known people who've dropped Netflix who said, there's just not enough stuff on it. I have kids, so we went with Disney Plus instead. Now, Netflix is late to the game on this idea, which is like maybe we just need to gobble something up because Disney buys 20th Century Fox. And so what does that do to their streaming service? It legitimizes their streaming service for adults. Because not everyone's a Disney adult, but you know what? The Simpsons, Die Hard, all of these things that Fox owns becomes part of their umbrella, and they're smushing these things together and including it in their streaming service.
And a huge part of that too is it injects brand new life into their most profitable property at that moment, which is the MCU.
Yep.
Because all these characters come back into the fold, you can do all these new things, and the timing on that was pretty perfect for them.
It was genius.
Yeah.
So Netflix sends me an email this morning, okay? Now, it says, hi, JJ. Be like, stop being so informal. You can call me Mr. Gordon.
Yeah.
We recently announced that Netflix will acquire Warner Brothers, including its film and television studios, HBO Max, and HBO. This unites our leading entertainment service with Warner Brothers' iconic stories, bringing some of the world's most beloved franchises like Harry Potter, Friends, The Big Bang Theory, Casablanca, Game of Thrones, and the DC Universe together with Stranger Things, Wednesday, Squid Game, Bridgerton, and K-pop Demon Hunters. What's changing? Nothing is changing today. Both streaming services, both streaming services will continue to operate separately. We have more steps to complete before the deal is closed, including regulatory and shareholder approvals. You'll hear from us when we have more to share. In the meantime, we hope you'll continue to enjoy watching as much as you want, whenever you want, wherever you want, all on your current membership plan. We know you might have questions. Check out our help center for more information or contact us at any time. Thanks again for choosing Netflix. We're committed to bringing you more great TV shows, movies, games, and live programming. The Netflix team. Now, I did click on the help desk just to see what the questions are. These are delightful. Why is Netflix acquiring Warner Brothers? Which seems pretty basic, but Netflix answers it. The acquisition unites our leading entertainment service with Warner Brothers' iconic stories, bringing some of the world's most beloved franchises like Harry Potter, Friends, Big Bang Theory, Casablanca, Game of Thrones, and DC Universe together with Stranger Things, Wednesday, Squid Games, Bridgerton, K-pop Demon Hunters. You can read more about that here. What from Warner Brothers is Netflix acquiring? Our acquisition includes Warner Brothers film and television studios, HBO Max, and HBO. This is the unsung part of this that I really want to bring up. Netflix rents space at other studios. Warner Brothers is still one of the largest production lots on the planet. One of my favorite things, like when I've gone to LA, is to do the backlot tour of Warner Brothers. The iconic square where Back to the Future, is filmed, right? Television shows and movies. Jurassic Park: The Lost World was filmed on the Warner Brothers stage because Universal didn't have a stage big enough to do the RV going over the side of the building scene. So it is a fully functional movie studio where stuff is being produced all the time, including television shows like Friends, right? Cheers. So this is not just for intellectual property. They are also getting real estate, and they're getting something that normally it would take a group 50 years to build up, which is a fully functional production suite space. So that is something right off the bat that makes this a cash positive flow. As long as they'll continue to make their own stuff there, but you know what? I'm also sure they'll continue to be a place where all sorts of groups are filming.
What's the number again? 78 billion?
72 billion, as I saw. It's like a $72 billion offer on an $80 billion evaluation.
Right. And of course, that is financed through all sorts of institutions as well. So that's not necessarily...
They're not writing a check.
That's not
Netflix.
Like, here you go, $72 billion, right? The tentacles of deals like this are massive, and they usually involve multiple massive institutions.
Right.
Including the federal government.
Right now, also being produced by HBO is a Harry Potter television series where each book is going to be 10 episodes. They've got a whole new cast. John Lithgow is playing Albus Dumbledore in it, and they've started to kind of show these little things. This is going to be a major coup. This is worth, in my opinion, $100 billion already. Right? So what does this mean for my membership, says Netflix? Nothing is changing with your membership today. The transaction is subject to regulatory and shareholder approvals. We expect to close a transaction in 12 to 18 months. You'll hear more from us when we got something to share. Will there be a change to my monthly subscription plan? Nothing is changing with your current plan. Continue enjoying our variety of quality movies, TV shows, games, and live programming all on your current membership plan. Am I able to access HBO Max or other Warner Brothers services on Netflix now? No. You should continue to access these services separately. When will Warner Brothers shows become available on Netflix? Nothing is changing with content currently on Netflix. Netflix and Warner Brothers will remain separate until the transaction is closed, which says to me there, we are planning to get rid of HBO Max. Or they do what Amazon Prime did, which is you can have an add-on to this. So you can get Netflix, and then if you want to add on the HBO stuff, that's included on it as well.
I think HBO becomes a sub-production brand within Netflix.
Easily.
So it's just like, if it has the HBO label on it, you can expect a certain kind of product.
Nudity.
Right? Yeah, exactly. But there really is no HBO anymore. It's literally just a label. It's a brand. It's like any sort of acquisition where they're just the same thing now. You could call that HBO, you could call that Netflix, but it's Netflix.
It's Netflix. What if I already have an HBO Max subscription? Should I cancel it? No. Netflix and Warner Brothers will remain separate until the transaction is closed. So clearly, they don't want a ton of people canceling their HBO Max accounts. They want you to keep those so that they can get that. Will my watch history, recommendations, or profile change because of the acquisition? Nothing is changing with the way you experience Netflix. Will Warner Brothers keep making new films and series? Yes, Warner Brothers will continue to operate separately. Where to find official updates about this? The Netflix newsroom, which I didn't know existed until today. This is also one other big part that makes me go, because Warner Brothers doesn't just have a robust library, a ton of IP, an established streaming service, but what's one thing that Netflix does not have and was heralded being like, hey, you're bucking the trend. You're not like everyone else.
The marketplace? Or
They have television stations.
television stations?
HBO home box office
sure.
there's like 5 HBOs now, I think,
Yeah.
right? HBO Family,
Yep.
HBO 2, which is where they made The Sopranos for, right? They didn't make it for a streaming service. They made it to air on terrestrial television. This just gave Netflix 5 subscription-based television stations that they can do whatever they want. So it would be interesting to find out if they're going to start putting Netflix content to fill the gaps on HBO, or if maybe they get rid of HBO entirely.
Yeah.
You know, HBO
It's
is
absorbed.
You know, Warner Brothers did a huge thing with HBO back in the day, which was we need to get this into every single hotel in the country. And so they made deals with giant hotel chains so that hotel chains put, you know, like every HBO in every room. Do you remember seeing those signs outside like motels and stuff like that?
Yep.
That was a huge deal. That was the only way I consumed HBO back in the day.
Yep.
That's how I saw that Pamela Anderson movie where she's like a superhero.
Barbed Wire?
That's the one. That's the one. Watched the beginning of that, and then all of a sudden I was like, boy, I think I should maybe go to bed. It was one of those situations where I didn't even know that this was coming. I think we've all been watching how like J.J. Abrams wanted to, and the other group wanted to buy Paramount, and we were all kind of waiting for that deal to go through. Meanwhile, Netflix is over there, you know, running into HBO at the gas station being like, hey, you for sale right now?
Well, and a huge part of the news too was that it was known that companies were courting Warner Brothers. I mean, really, you bring David Zaslav as your CEO to prep you for a sale eventually, right? Part of why they did all the tax write-off stuff.
They want to make this business look efficient and streamlined.
Yep. He's there to build the valuation of the company for a sale, and they were being pursued aggressively by Paramount, which is a corporation that's owned by Trump allies, which are already consolidating other media. So in the larger landscape, what's really happening is power and media consolidation, and all of this intellectual property is being, you know, continuing to be put under one roof, and that can have a lot of negative consequences. The thing that always turns my stomach is hearing this corporate language from Netflix about how this is such a great thing and here's how it's going to help all this other stuff. But all of those kinds of productivity gains, those never go to the creators. That never goes to the audience. That doesn't lower our bill or anything. It just creates another lever for those funds to flow upward. So all we're not watching an improvement in service or anything. We're watching money consolidation and acquisition and wealth transfer.
This is this is the thing I see that benefits me as a consumer. And trust me, I have thought long and hard about what this could possibly be. It might mean that I only have one app I have to update on my smart TV rather than 2. And like I only have to remember one login rather than 2, right? And that's the way I feel about, you know, they're sundowning Hulu in 2020, early 2026, and it's all going to be on Disney Plus. I pay for both of those individually, but I know the price isn't going to go down when it's just Disney Plus. Right. I know I'm probably going to be paying more. Okay, let me add another wrinkle to this thing. Universal Studios, the theme park, right, has a deal with Warner Brothers and the Harry Potter, the people who own the Harry Potter rights, to include Harry Potter in the Wizarding World, right? There's one in LA, there's one in Epic Universe, there's one in Universal Studios as well. These are big, huge pieces, and they are based off of the film franchise. They are inspired by the book, but like it's Daniel Radcliffe who's on these rides, right? It is the monster book, you know, that you see in the shops. That's the one from the movie. These are all inspired by things from an IP that is now going to be owned by another company. Now, Warner Brothers has like 2 theme parks, that one in Germany and one in Australia, and people tell me they're pretty sad. Like the best ride is a ride where Alf, like, hey, Willie, where's your cat? takes you through a bunch of movies, and like there's one where gremlins go in and like mess up stuff. Like people tell me these are sad theme parks. But Warner Brothers, they decided, what we're going to do is we're going to just, we're going to make it easy on everybody to do stuff in the United States by saying we're going to license to Six Flags. And Six Flags can have the Looney Tunes. Six Flags can have the DC characters to do a bunch of stuff out there. So, there's the really crappy like Batman ride that everyone talks about is just horrible down in Texas, Six Flags over Texas. But now Netflix, who we know doesn't play nice, that wants to own these things. So I'm sure that they've got some kind of a deal in perpetuity, but at this point, what's stopping Netflix from wanting to get into the theme park game, right?
Yep.
And
I would even go one step further what I think this is a totally different trend, but it's happening with TikTok right now and a lot of those other services is that they're building in an actual marketplace in the service itself.
Yes.
So at some point, what it's gonna be is, either with Disney or with Warner Brothers or whatever, is you're watching Looney Tunes, and while you're watching it, you can click and buy a Bugs Bunny hat when you see it on there, and just buy it right there, or all sorts of things will happen. Their consolidation. You're right. It's not just media, right? There's so many different ways to monetize the audience that funnels into their system.
Yeah, when I was watching Disney Plus at a friend's house, and they have the tiered program, and part of their ad tier was you watched a thing for Disney resorts, and it's like, click now, right now. And so like if you're watching Star Wars, you watch a commercial that's completely themed around going to Galaxy's Edge, right? If you're watching something about cartoons, you're seeing Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. And so it's smart the way they do those things. I question this new HBO series of the new Harry Potter, if this thing takes off even halfway as popular as the current Harry Potter film series is, they're going to need to update those rides, and now they're going to have to deal with working with the people out at Netflix, rather than a handshake deal between Warner Brothers and Universal, which have existed next to each other. Like if you're in Universal Studios, you can see Warner Brothers, right? I find this to be so intriguing in how these things go, and I don't think that this is the end of the meal for Netflix. I see Netflix being like, listen, this worked out well. Let's see what else we can acquire, what else we can, accumulate. Because like Apple TV has a deal, I think, with Lionsgate, where they're like Lionsgate's creating stuff that's going to go on Apple TV. But again, why not just own it?
I do think in our lifetime, we will either see a Netflix-Disney merger of some kind, or a Disney-Apple acquisition.
I wouldn't be surprised about that at all.
I think Apple acquiring Disney would actually be the thing that happens because they have so much cash on hand. Mm-hmm. Because at some point, we're watching it happen now, the only way to grow the share price is to acquire.
Right.
At the speed they want to.
Right.
Bring up the share, and at the amount they want to bring up the share price.
That's the thing, right? Like Disneyland is celebrating its 70th anniversary this year.
Right.
You don't get to do that if you're Apple. Like you don't have 70 years to catch up on theme parks. It's just easier to buy it, right? Mm-hmm. It's just easier to buy it, which in a way is a comment on how we are as people nowadays too. No one gets their vacuum cleaner fixed. They just throw it out and get a new one.
Hey, I still got that, my big old tank.
You do. I was really proud. I was like, if this thing ever broke down, I'd be like, that dude's going to University Vacuum to get that serviced by some old guy named Gary who's like, I haven't seen a Kirby like this in a while. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information. The thing no one's talking about is, why isn't there a Pillsbury cinematic universe?
Who would be in that?
Well, the Pillsbury Doughboy is
Certainly.
your Iron Man, right? Like is your through line. But